I Can, I Will, my story of overcoming abuse, disability and racism. Mark Esho, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Mark, give us a brief overview of your beginning.
Okay. Well, I was born in Highfields, in Leicester, which is actually just around the corner from here. My parents arrived in the early 60s from Nigeria, and they met on the boat because it's not like a refugee boat that you got now. Back then, obviously, the flights were very, very expensive, and not a lot of people were flying in those days. So people basically used to get onto the boat like a cruise liner, and it used to take about 2 to 3 weeks. And so they met. They moved to Leicester. They moved to Highfields, and that's where I was conceived. And they were struggling students. So what used to happen then, I think it still happens now, is that with what some parents would do, is that they would actually look for a private fostering family. So they found a fostering family in Newport Verdon, which is a mining village. It's about 15 miles from Leicester. And and that's where I grew up. So I was like the only black in the village.
You would take on the only gay in the village.
That's right. Yeah.
So Newport Verdon and the Archers.
The Archers. That's right. Yeah. That's in the family. Yeah.
What was the transition like from living with Nigerian parents to?
Right. Okay. Good question. What I didn't explain was that the fact that I was actually I started to live with the Archers when I was only 6 months old.
Oh.
So technically, I didn't really know my parents. So I grew up with the Archers and their children, and they became more like my foster brothers and sisters.
We had a chat earlier before this interview, and you highlighted that possibly struggling students, your parents. Would this have been one of the reasons why they opted for the adoption stroke fostering?
Well, it's not adoption or fostering per se as we know it in this modern age. It was very, very common then. It was almost like having like a live out nanny, but more like an extended nanny service than anything else. So I know it sounds a bit profound, that okay, you've been fostered out or you've been adopted out. It wasn't really that way, because basically they were paying.
Wow. So tell me a bit about your memories of living with the Archers.
Oh gosh, that's an interesting one. One of my first memories I remember is because obviously the issue is that if you live in a all-white village, I grew up. This is not the right thing to say. I think I grew up thinking I was white, and I distinctly remember someone. Unfortunately, I missed this out of the book. I should have put this in the book. And I see someone calling me Suti. Okay, and in my mind as a child, it's probably about 2 to 3 years. In my mind, someone calling me Suti, I kind of aligned that to a chimney sweep, because we used to have coal fires, and every year the sweep would go up in the chimney and come back down, and it'd be as black as hell. He said. So I thought, okay, the chimney sweep, what they do is they just bubble wash and they're white. So I'm told that I was in the bathroom one day with a brush trying to scrub my skin and trying to get myself white. So that was one of my first memories.
Now, you possibly started to make friends in the village?
I had lots of friends in the village. I was a very popular kid. I can't remember, and I know there was racism because I know my foster brother David. He got into lots of fights, but people got to know me, and I had lots of friends in the village. I went everywhere in the village, and it was a happy time.
And we're talking circa 60s. 70s.
Oh gosh, we're talking not that old, Kevin. Nice try. No,
At least I tried.
Yeah, they say tried indeed, exactly. No harm in trying. We're looking about 1965, 1966, around that time.
So my guess is you were probably 4 or 5 then.
I was about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yes.
Tell me the story then about polio.
It so happened after I had my first bike. I've always wanted a bike, and this is one of my distinct memories. And I got my bike, and within a day, I was riding my bike without stabilizers. I was so happy. And
Typical boy.
A typical boy, exactly. And I think it's probably the same day or second day. I went to bed, got up in the middle of the night, and wanted to go to the toilet because it's dark. Being a typical kid, I shouted out for Mrs. Archer to escort me to the toilet. So she got up, and then we both went to the toilet. I then walked back to my bed, and as I got into the bed, I shook all over. I had like a fit. I don't know how long it went on for, but I blacked out. Then the next day, I woke up at Leicester Roy Infirmary and opened my eyes, tried to move, and couldn't. So when I say tried to move, as in I couldn't move anything from my neck down. I was completely dead. And so I just remember being hysterical, screaming, what's happening to me? The archers were basically surrounding me. I was in isolation because I had to be in isolation because obviously, polio there was supposed to have been eradicated. So yeah, not a pleasant experience.
From reading your book, I will, which is now a bestseller, by the way. Congratulations!
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it's number 1 bestseller as well.
It's specified.
Exactly.
I will. My story of overcoming abuse, disability, and racism. Mark Esho, disabled with polio from neck down, aged 5. You were told you'd never walk again.
Yes.
Although you partially recovered, you had to battle against an abusive father.
Yeah, it's.
And when I say that, I mean your natural father.
Yeah, my natural father. Yeah, it's not till late in life that I found out that when I was taken ill, he encouraged my mum to abandon me because by then he'd moved back to Nigeria. He started his career. His career was progressing quite nicely. And I think in his mind he didn't know what he could do with a disabled child. I don't know if he thought the disabled child would probably shame him or as to whether it would hinder his career. But yeah, he asked my mum to abandon me. Fortunately, she was strong, and she said no. So I partially recovered. So I recovered to the extent whereby I could get around in a wheelchair. That leg was dead. This one was dead as well. Fortunately, this leg came back. My left arm came back as well. So left arm, right arm, it came back anyway. Yeah. So since that, I was very lucky in that respect because polio can be completely devastating, And so they put me in a special needs school. So I went to Ashfield in Leicester. But by then, to protect disabled people, what they used to do is that they used to club people with, what's the word? I'm looking for the PC word. Mentally challenged.
Well, those days they got away with calling it handicapped. That's what you say in the book.
Absolutely. Yeah. In those days, it was handicapped. So basically, all handicapped people were banded together, whether it was physical, whether it was mental. Basically, everyone's banded together. But anyway, to cut a long story short, my parents found out that I was in this special needs school where all we did was go in and play and draw. They're absolutely
because academically, they want you to academia. They want you to progress.
Absolutely right. And again, possibly in my dad's mind, I don't know because he's never spoken to me about it. And I don't know in his mind, it could be that he's thinking, well, I don't want the shame of people knowing that I've left my child in a special needs school. So they decided to come and get me. Which is a very harrowing event. Because
you write in detail about that event. How does it make you feel thinking today of your time on that flight?
Sad, because it was a very traumatic experience. Being kind of taken away from what I perceived really as my family, because I kind of hate, it pains me to say it, but I didn't really know my parents. So which I can looking at from their perspective, especially my mom's perspective, I can see how hard it probably was for her to know, or obviously to feel the fact that I just had no connection, there's no rapport. So it's almost like I was basically being taken out to live with strangers. So then going to Nigeria and landing in Nigeria, and then where people are speaking a completely different language.
It probably sounded like Greek to you.
Absolutely. It sounded like Greek, noisy, dirty, food was different, everything. Basically my whole world was turned upside down. And I then soon, because you're from Africa yourself, I soon found out that you don't talk back to
spoken to.
Absolutely, spoken to. So, yes, that was a shock to the system, because I was basically used to having, lying exactly, having my own say, independence. But in Nigeria, that was actually seen as actually being impersonant and being rude. So so a few sharp slaps.
Which on the straight and narrow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Quick.
Your comment there, I'm going to digress a bit. Takes me to a point where I'd like to find out if you think that kind of disciplinarian, strict way of bringing up suppresses a child's independence.
Completely. It can't. Kids need room to grow. They need room to experiment, and and they need that development process whereby they can have an engaging conversation with an adult, because that's how you learn. Because learning from your peers is limited. Whereas if you have an engaging conversation with an adult, you're going to learn that. You're going to learn more that way. And unfortunately, in Africa, it's a culture whereby children, it's changed a lot now actually, but back then, it's almost like children were there, as you said, they were there to be seen but not heard. And it's almost like children were just some sort of commodity that they basically had. And weren't there to be nurtured and developed and cared for. And that's what I saw here.
In the book, you speak of not being able to fully engage in extracurricular activities, sports, obviously because of what happened, and sort of had to make up for it in a way through academia, and by virtue of your dad being a disciplinarian.
Well, what happened was, there's obviously part of the story when you read the book, is that when I first got back to Nigeria, the first within 2 weeks, because of my dad's conditional background, he thought in his mind, God bless his soul, he's dead now, that the traditional doctors could heal me. So within 2-3 weeks of being there, I was actually taken into the bushes in the middle of the night.
This is even before we begin to talk about academic progression. Let me sort out this
problem.
Curse.
Exactly, this curse. Thank you. That's a very good word. So basically, let's sort out this curse.
In apostrophes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And and let's get it sorted. So so I had all sorts of sacrifices. I made pots and chicken blood, goat blood, but then they sort it in front of you as well. So I've never seen that.
And this was all new to you, obviously.
This is all new, and then they have these cuts. I can't remember what they're called. I think there's a special name for these cuts that they basically, these incisions that are done with a knife or blade. And when they healed, then they do it again. So which wasn't nice.
I see a striking, good-looking man with no evidence of those cuts before.
Oh yeah, but they're superficial cuts, aren't they?
Oh yeah,
they're superficial cuts.
yeah. You speak of the more these witch doctors convinced your dad that things would change, the more you spent money on them.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to spoil the book for you. There's a chapter called Karma, which I think you'll enjoy. So I'm just going to leave that one for now.
Okay.
So going back to academia. So unfortunately, because when I went back, I was on the two calipers. Calipers broke, and because of where we were, we didn't have access to actually get them repaired. So I remember my very first school, I had to actually be lifted and carried into the school. Basically, sat at the back of the class, and that's where I was all day. And as you pointed out, couldn't go out and play, so I studied.
Yeah.
So I studied hard, which made
and that put you miles ahead of the other class.
Maybe miles ahead because by the time I started school, I was about 9 anyway, 9 or 10. So I'd lost about 2-3 years quite easily. So I went from Form 1, I got promoted. It's called a double promotion. So I went to them. So year 1, year 2. So I beg your pardon, I skipped year 2, went to 3, and then went to year 5.
Wow.
Yeah, so I only spent 3 years at primary school.
And therefore making up for all those other years.
That's right.
Drawing and singing.
Absolutely. Drawing and singing.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I was drawing and singing, exactly.
You strike me as the kind of guy who, by doing a whole lot of studying and, sinking your teeth into academia, made up for lost time. You strike me as the kind of guy who was possibly exploiting what you could do, your abilities, to their very fullest potential.
Yeah, that's what you got to do in life. It's one thing I've learned in life is that you need to. Okay, you might have setbacks, but you need to actually start looking at your strengths. Forget about your weaknesses, and look at your strengths. And actually, by doing those, by capitalizing on your strengths, you can then mitigate your weaknesses. And that's something I learned from a very early age, and that's the reason why I spent 3 years in primary school, and which was a blessing.
Tell me a bit about your dad. He was a force to be reckoned with in more ways than one.
Well, that's an understatement. I think he was brought up from a very traditional background. His mum was illiterate. I think his dad was semi-literate. I'd only met my grandfather once or twice, but he had about 4 or 5 wives. And I think it was his upbringing. It was mainly a product of his upbringing. He was a very determined man, and that's why obviously he became the head of the water corporation. He was an engineer.
Wow.
So he did really, really well for himself.
Prosperous.
It was very prosperous, man. But at the same time, he was very, very strict. He was strict with my mum. He was a womanizer, which I've mentioned in my book.
You talk about the aunties?
Oh yeah, the aunties. I have so many aunties. It's unbelievable. I must have had like 100 aunties.
So is this a pseudo name for girlfriends?
That's exactly that. That's what his girlfriends. But he was a bully. Put it that way. He was a bully.